record. There you go. Okay, we're good. We're good. We're going to go. Okay, so let's just start in. Boom. Slideshow. It's going. Okay, so we'll click. Boom. Right. So why save the USPS? Why is marketing mail the answer to saving the USPS? And the truth is, I'm very impressed with the USPS. When I started back in the 80s, we would go from 50 to 75 cents for in the mail, and today a catalog that you print a couple of 100,000, which is what we started with. We always told people you had to put at least $250,000 in the mail. You can still do that for a buck or two, right? And so you got to give the USPS credit. I think you do, and you got to say, man, they've done a great job at improving handling of mail. So that's not what we're going to talk about today. But the problem is that there's only so much you can do. And nevertheless, in 2024 fiscal, which was the last number I had, but I think it's about the same this last year, they lost $9 billion. And since 2006, it's down about half in marketing mail. But they haven't shrunk the staff quite as much. But on a webinar with David Rosendahl, Chris Karpenko, the executive director, said in 2024 we paid out about $500 million in postal incentives to just 1,300 companies, and I think there's about 5,000 that could have participated, he said. But what we don't have is something for the rest of the 29 million other businesses, right? And so I kind of took that as a challenge, and that's what got me going on how could we help USPS. It turns out that digital right now makes up 75% of total US ad spending, okay? And ad spending is not down, not at all. Since 2008, it's just up. But marketing mail volume is down. So what we see is that digital is just taken over. And this little 8% is print, right? And we're all competing for that little slice. And what I said to Ray and to USPS is we need to get over in this out here, social, search, right? 91 billion, 87 billion, right? That's where the money is. How can we convince digital and move digital over to expanding mail? Because that's where we've lost it, right? I think it's pretty obvious. So today I want to tell you about two companies at least that are doing that right now, which is exciting. They were going to come, but probably got mixed up. First, I want to say, when we talk about advertising, you got to understand marketing people want to just do the least. They want to be everywhere all the time in front of everyone and not have it be much work. But the CEO has goals. He's been hired and they've told him, if you can do this and this and this, you'll make a ton of money, right? So he has incentives for return on investment, profitability, and scalable growth. And those are not easy to do together, okay? If you want to grow, it's expensive. And in digital, it's getting more and more and more expensive because as you grow, it's an auction and other people find out what you're doing. And all of a sudden, it's costing you more per contact than it was at lower volumes. Whereas mail, as you all know, the more you print, the better deal you get, right? It's a wonderful move when digital starts to lose traction. So the CEO wants this kind of predictable marketing. My boss, when I was working at a general agency, said, what we want to offer is a box where you put in $1 and out jumps $1.50. How many dollars would you put into that box if you knew there was $1.50 coming out. Jeff Taryn just posted this yesterday. I wanted to make this up to date. And he said, and this is how CMOs prove the value of marketing, which I thought was really great. You know, that was right on the button of what I was looking for. Okay. And he said, first, they want to promise that they can develop stronger marketing performance tracking. And second, they want to demonstrate the financial impact of marketing. What they want is they want a causal connection, right? When we do this, that happens. And we know how big it's going to be and what's going to happen. And that, I believe, is more available in mail than any other medium, without any question, bar none, hands down. Okay. And I have personally gone into companies over and over and over, and I've done this for them. I've grown circulation, I've grown profitability, because mail is this heuristic system that's perfect for what the CEO is looking for. Okay. So how do we predict? I spent years, I have a master's in the philosophy of science. So I understand some of the scientific process, which when I started in mail, my list broker gave me 6 data cards. He said, mail these and let me know what happened. I said, well, what kind of lists are these? He said, don't worry about that. You mail them, tell me which ones did best, and I'll get you more. And I said, that is not how science works, right? Science works by identifying, isolating, and validating causal forces. You say, well, why are we doing all this science stuff? I was kind of hoping you went this way, Lindsay, yesterday, but you didn't. But that's the way science builds buildings that don't fall down and rockets that can go to the moon. Okay, they find out what the forces are that they need to control, and they control those to get repeatable effects. Why does this matter? Because that's what the CEO is after. Okay, that is all he's after. He believes that marketing people are basically flaky and easily replaced. They don't have credibility because they don't look for these things. Okay, he wants predictable experiments. And for that, we actually need guaranteed engagement. I'm not going to go into why mail has guaranteed engagement, but here's kind of the summary. We know who is mailed, right? We know every household that gets mail. We know the mail is delivered because that's what USPS is good at, unlike digital, where we don't even really know if anyone sees it. Can you imagine? Okay. Further, we know it goes to a decision maker. How do you know that? Because when I had 4 kids, I didn't let them pick up the mail. We don't want the kids picking up the mail. They don't know. It's got to go to the decision maker, my wife or myself, mostly my wife, which means that we know there is engagement because it assures a decision is made. And you say, wait a minute here. How do we know that? Not everybody buys that we mail to, right? But everybody has to decide whether they're going to throw it into the trash. If only that, or set it aside for later. If only that. And obviously, you know, guys like Mike Gunderson know how to keep it from getting in the trash, getting it open, getting it looked at, getting it touched. Your brain has 10 times the touch receptors than it does sight. So the engagement is massive. And the only thing that mail, the only medium that that offers this is that we can know the engaged non-buyers. We can take our customer file and not mail all of them. We can segment, but even in the best segments, we can hold out some, and we can see what would have happened if we hadn't mailed them. In the mass of all the digital crazy and all the, you know, and all the pay-per-click and all that stuff, we can still isolate the impact of mail because we know who was mailed and we know who wasn't mailed. And that is a profound leverage that mail has. And that's about all I'm going to say about it, just that it's wonderful. Okay, so a couple of weeks ago, Postpilot posted this crazy picture. And Postpilot, I'm just a big fan of because they are better than anyone I've seen, except for the other company I want to talk about, who also is doing it. They are the best I've seen at moving digital money into mail, which is our entire focus right now. That's what we're here for. That's what nobody thinks is even possible, I think, even at the Postal Service. Sorry, Ray, but I've never met anybody at the Postal Service who believed in mail like I do. Okay. They claim that one of their clients, they didn't say who, which is okay with me, right? All my career, I've said what or who or when, but you don't put it all together. You don't have to give off trade secrets, but you can give enough information to be credible. And they said one of their clients called them up in late January and said, we're going to move $1 million out of Meta and into mail with you. Could anybody use an extra $1 million sale? Yes. Right. Okay. So they also have some wonderful videos, and I've been, so this is a video case study. There's a QR code in the upper right corner. I don't know if it'll work, but you can have the slides when we finish. And that will take you to one of the top executives of, I believe it's an affiliate partner that works with Clario, because Postpilot works as a partner with Clario and with Shopify and can get the data right out. I talked to Mike about this and Jeff, is, we need to elevate this process so we're getting the data. All of my catalog clients that I did customer segmentation with machine learning and AI, they always started by sending me 5 to 10 years of transaction level history and agreed to send me the monthly updates that they were sending to Wyland or Experian or Epsilon or whatever. So I would get right in on that and I would have all those transactions. That's the kind of step you need in the selling process to absolutely know what's going on, to do the matchbacks and to do the analysis and the fancy stuff, because it took me a couple of years to figure out why I could do this for big catalog companies and I could make money with AI and machine learning, and everybody else said they couldn't. Oh, well, that's because I had the transaction data. So that's like step one. And that is what Postpilot, the breakthrough that they've come up with, and also with Best Postcard does the exact same thing. I know that's key. Okay. And so as I said, one of the executives talks about how their open rates are dropping, right? Not only are they dropping, and not only have many customers unsubscribed, but Clario, if you don't interact with the customer and they don't interact with you, Clario limits your ability to communicate with them by email. How about that? Right? Never mind that as much as I've tried to delete 99% of my emails, which I kept track for a day or two, 300 emails a day, and I saved one. That's 0.3%. Right? The problem is I can't delete them without it thinking that I opened it. I haven't figured out how to do that on my email interface. So open rates are a lie. They are a joke of a lie, right? So Outwork said rightly, hey, we got to mail somebody, right? Direct mail is a 90% open rate. I don't know how they get to 90%. You have to look at everything. You might say, well, I didn't really look at the offer. My postman and I have these talks. And he said, well, you didn't get any today, but you had some yesterday. I said, yeah, the awning company. I can remember the day after I got it. awning company. Do I want an awning? No. Am I going to throw it away? Sure, I will right now. There's something empowering about junk mail, by the way. What else in life can you throw away and know that you'll never need it? We're having tree service done. We lost 4 big trees. One of the guys showed up with a little logo on his shirt. I said, you know what? I got your mailer. I remembered that. I can't believe it. The other ones didn't have mailers. Anyway, so this was just a little tiny test. It focused on 1,850 lapsed customers. It's not even the kind of test I'd really want to run, because they're not going to get any statistically valid information anyway. But that's how we start. That's how Postpilot starts. They already have the data API. They can suck the data right out, and it's not hard. The other funny thing is that this was the other segment they mailed was 90 to 80 days lapsed. And we'd call those the hotline in the catalog business. 0 to 12-month buyers were called a hotline most of the time for most of my clients. And that's like, these are way dead. These are way dead. We have so much opportunity here because they just don't know how, customers are not thinking about your company all day long. So anyway, here's another case study that they had, another video, different video by the head of marketing. Wonderful video. Hexclad, which I hadn't heard of before. Gordon Ramsay sort of endorses it or whatever he probably is their spokesman. And they claimed to have generated tens of millions in revenue. So they actually do have I looked them up, and they do have millions of customers, and probably Michael, the co-founder of Postpilot, was supposed to come, but I saw that he had a board meeting today. I think it was today. So, I mean, Drew, his co-founder, talked about it, but I highly recommend just watching that, because it's just worthwhile to see how well the CEO or the marketing, whoever it is, understands why mail is incrementally beneficial. That's the first step. That's where we want to get people to. We want to understand it's in their interest to understand the novelty of mail. Does that make sense? Well, anyway, that's what my goal is. I know it's possible because I know they're doing it. Okay, wonderful, wonderful case study. Okay, then I want to talk about Andrew Ettinger. I don't know if you know him. He's been focused on the HVAC and home improvement markets, and he's created sort of a system where he can go city to city with owner operators. So he has successfully for years been moving money out of digital. When he starts, he says, we need 3 years of your customer data and your transaction data. Okay, 3 years of financial, and he then builds a geodemographic profile of those buyers. He asks for a commitment of 10,000 buyers mailed monthly and 10,000 prospects mailed monthly, but they can be different. You don't have to, be the same people over and over and over. He builds that profile usually in a fairly big metro where there's way more prospects than that. And he does match back analysis to prove the impact of direct mail. And he's in that, I have a secret video I can't share with you on that one, where he goes segment by segment and shows the immediately attributable revenue from individual segment mailings. It's powerful stuff. And he does that. He walks the clients through proving the ROI. Okay, and lastly, I'll share one of my own case studies. When we did with a holdout analysis, we found out that the mailed customers were 900% return on investment profit. The catalog mailers, they all they all focused on net profit, right? You have to run your business on net profit. And the fact that marketers use return on ad sales, I think, is a great indictment of marketing. I think the CFO and the CEO just, you know, elbow each other and smirk about it. They say, you can see they don't know anything about finance if they're going to talk about return on ad spend. I had a client, not a huge catalog, but a pretty good size one. And he said, go downstairs and talk to my digital guys and see if they know what they're doing. They told me, well, we know it's working because we've spent $1 million in advertising and incentives to influencers, and we've gotten more than $1 million of sales. And I said, yeah, but what about the stuff that goes out in the boxes? You know, that costs us money. Do you ever realize that? They had nothing in it for cost of goods. They had nothing in it for order processing or their own overhead or anything, you know, and that's the state of marketers today. So anyway, we had this 900. What happened was the vice president of marketing called me up and he said, you know, our main problem is name recognition. Once people find out about our product, they buy it, and in the same conversion levels as Wayfair and Williams Sonoma, they sold furniture online. And he said, so, you know, we think it's a waste of money to send out catalogs to our existing customers, which made perfect sense. I said, Patrick, that's the smartest thing anybody's ever said to me. You know, would you like to know? Oh, here's Ray. Would you like to know whether or not that this mailing of this catalog is working? And he said, how could you know? He was from Mountain Dew. And I said, oh yeah, well, we can not mail some of the people. We can mail most everybody and then not mail a few. And so we did. And what we found was, first off, we found that the people we mailed themselves spent about 300% ROI. So generated $3 of profit for every dollar of mailing expense. And the return on ad spend was more like $10 per dollar of ad spend, which is a good number. But then our tech guys noticed that there were a lot of next door neighbors that were buying that we hadn't mailed, but were right next door. And so we loosened up the match back a little bit. And that's where we found the 900%. And we found out that for every one customer that bought again, we found 2 new customers that bought. So not only was their mailing to customers effective on a customer level with a tight match, but on a loose match, it was astounding in its pass along, just colossally profitable. And then they kept on, not only did they keep on mailing the catalog, but they also started doing traffic building around their stores. I proved to them that their stores still mattered, even though they had spent millions on their website and thought that they could just have people buy furniture through the website, not wanting to jump on the couches. Anyway, then we did offer testing. They had 3 or 4 main offers that they were using, and we found that one outpulled the other 3, which is incredibly important because they were doing a lot of TV, a lot of social, a lot of digital, and they changed to using that one offer. And that just poured gas on it. That's why I don't advocate adding a little mail to your digital, because you don't know what you're doing in digital. You don't have the same level of engagement in digital. You don't have the same quality of testing. And that's one of the things we want to communicate to the marketing community, right? That you can learn something, and once you know it, then you can pour gasoline on your digital and on your social and on your TV and mass media. And that's what they did. And in just a short amount of time, we started working with them down here in 2015 and worked through, you know, these years. But in just a short amount of time, they went from 75 million in one calendar year. They went from 75 million to 100 million. Okay, that's a 33% increase in in total revenue. And they did it without opening any more stores, which is where most of this other growth had come. When I started working with him, the CFO confided in me. He said, if I could grow this company without opening another store, I would. I'd do anything rather than opening more stores, he said. And that's what we managed to do. And it wasn't all mail, but it was based on what we learned from mail. And that's such a powerful thing. That's what we want to encourage to happen again and again and again. That's what I want to encourage, Mike and Jeff. I want us to work together, and Andrew and Michael, and build, even if it's only 5 or 6 great case studies. I believe, hey Ray, nice to see you. I believe they can be the trickle that starts a tsunami into mail. That's what I believe. That's really what I believe, because I was around in 81 when people were clamoring to do catalogs and to do mail. It was unbelievable. We were, David Ogilvy was a great spokesman, and Les Wonderman, and I spoke against those guys. They put me up there because I would, get excited, I guess. But anyway, they believed in it. They believed that they could learn things from mail that couldn't be learned other ways. And I believe that. And I believe that marketing is basically sheep looking for buzzwords. And we're going to, if we can give them that focus, then we are ready to go. Anyway, I believe we can restore marketing mail to 08 levels. That's about a doubling right now. That's an extra 50 billion pieces a year. I believe that would generate about 14 billion in revenue. It makes the budget sustainable. It makes USPS profitable with no new rate increases. I think that we could have their participation immediately, because we're not talking about $500 million like Chris Karpenko said. In my interview with Paul Lawson, he explained that USPS could start this immediately. All they would have to do is special arrangements with the vendors and the mailers that are part of the pilot program. So we don't need a new rate case. We don't need authorization from Congress. This is well within the scope of the ordinary negotiations that the USPS can have with other people. So what we're looking for is committed vendors who have clients who have significant digital spending that can be moved to mail, and we're going to hand pick those right off the bat, because that's we need some good case studies, but we don't need more than a dozen. I'm sure of that, not to start. And the force is going to be to test incremental mail contribution. So we're gonna include holdout tests. We're gonna include isolation of offers and things, just to make sure that we can at the back end have match back attribution and really get a good feel for what happened, and show how, in the midst of all the digital noise that they're creating, mail still drove unique traffic and more than paid for itself with those results. I feel this is important, because almost everybody I talked to, which were direct marketing agencies and printers and software companies and list companies, they all expressed dismay at the inability to get their clients to test at a level that they should be. And even if they did, they wouldn't share the results. And so in order to qualify for hopefully significant incentives, in order to qualify, you're going to with us. Just as you have to qualify, if you want the digital discount, you have to put a QR code on it. There's a QR code, see? Now, unfortunately, the Postal Service doesn't require that the QR is trackable. It might just go to your home page, which doesn't show that mail did anything. right? Just gives Google credit probably. But you did qualify for the discount. So we're going to try and part of this is about teaching the vendors how to sell a higher level product. And part of that is hopefully we can get some incentives from the USPS to make that happen, make that exciting to both the direct marketing vendors and the participating clients. But in order to get that all done, we're going to have some teaching, I think, because though Postpilot and Best Postcard are doing it, and their people are trained in it, and their clients. Go watch those case studies. The QR codes are on the slides. Watch those case studies. You'll see that the clients understand the power of the kind of testing that Postpilot requires, and that's everything. Okay, elevate. What we want to do is we want to move from just trying direct mail to direct marketing. Direct marketing, by that I mean a heuristic system, right? That's self-learning, that's repeatable, that is the essence of the scientific method. Hopefully we can get to the level where we have field valid scientific experimentation and we have high levels of statistical certainty, and essentially get gold standard with holdout tests and with back end matchback attribution, so that the CEO, remember, this is not to sell the marketing people. We don't even really want to talk to the marketing people, if you ask me. We want to get the CEO convinced that mail is the most scalable and the most scientific of all media. And that's something, okay? We need to make sure that it proves the incremental value of direct mail. Okay, and I know this is too fine a print, but we're going to do what we're going to do. Okay, incentivize. We're hoping that we can incentivize the pilot participants. We're going to generate results. We're going to generate incremental, wonderful results, because I've seen it over and over and over. We've got a level of professionals that know what they're doing. Okay, it's going to work, right? But we'd also like additional postage vouchers. The target level for me would be so that the clients already going in are getting basically a 50% discount. And several of the direct marketing vendors told me that they do that already. They do. I mean, they don't necessarily give half off, but they give it a significant amount off. And I also believe that both the vendors and the clients should receive some of the credits, because this then allows the vendors to test with other clients, right? To roll it over into other places. And Jeff from Gunder said they have a whole team of people now just trying to qualify for the growth incentives and the other postal incentives, and they don't receive a dime for that, nothing. So that needs to be addressed, okay? Because we want the clients to be excited about sharing the results, about achieving them, first of all, and then sharing them. And we can start them off with a 2-to-1, 200%, 2-to-1 return on investment, right? 200%. So, if the mailer costs $1, we can get it in the mail for 50 cents. And so they've already achieved payback, right? In a real meaningful sense. And that's the way we're going to go. And that's why USPS is so crucial to this, because not only do they have resources, and they have to do something. You can't just keep going to Congress and saying we don't have enough money. It's been operating at a loss basically since it went on the idea that they could break even. I don't think it's since the 70s. Every year they're negative, and they used to say it was because of the pension plan, but no. And they can't just keep pricing themselves out of other media. So USPS, and actually this was a question that Ray asked some very good questions. And I mean, I can't say that he gave me the answers. He's not allowed to do that. But he did ask some great questions. And, he asked, do you think we need a budget for telling people about it? I said, absolutely. He said, should we look for clients in industries that matter? I said, I don't think it matters. I really don't. I mean, there's obvious ones, retail, e-commerce, those guys. But I said, what we need is places where it does work. And then we need to target the CEO and CFOs, not the marketers, right? And we need to talk about the vendors. They're not the only people that are doing this, I'm sure. I think we'll have people coming out of the woodwork. The other vendors will say, well, we did this too. We have these case studies too. But I have never found any, I got to say, till Best Postcards and Postpilot. And I've been literally looking for years and years and years, where somebody will publish something that looks like a legitimate experimental design that I could show to a CEO, right? So anyway, we need to have those metrics shared. And I think there should be an ambassador. This is a plug for the WDMA. I think there should be a USPS ambassador role. I think we should have someone who speaks at conferences that believes in mail. And I would love to be an evangelist for direct mail, especially to the Association of National Advertisers. I think we could make it entertaining. I gave a keynote a couple of years ago to USPS salespeople, about 250 or so, and I got a standing ovation. And a guy came up to me afterwards and he said, I was ready to quit. I called my wife last night. I was going to quit. And he said, we've been here a whole week and not one person really advocated for mail. He said, I didn't think I had anything to say to these Gen Zs, that look over their desk at me and say, why would anyone do mail? He said, you're the first person in this entire week that told me that I have something to offer. We have a better vehicle. We have guaranteed engagement, and we always will. We can transform legacy companies. Drew Sanaki from Postpilot said something. I think that's who said this. I wrote it down. But he's been transforming companies just using mail over and over. Fantastic. He knows what he's doing. So what is the commitment? Next steps. I would say, if you enjoyed this talk, join the WDMA. We have a LinkedIn group that's free. And then at least you'll hear about the next webinar. But you could also actually join, and the dues are nominal compared to Association of National Advertisers or NMOA or most associations. It goes directly to underwrite the cost of Zoom. Commit to monthly meetings to find out how we can learn from each other. I'm going to be committed to keeping this can kicking down the road. Lay out some firm guidelines on what a CEO EBITDA level test program might look like. I've already started that. I've got a good start on that, but I would love to have help with it. And I would love, it was great. Ray, thanks for stopping in. I would love to explore, how to get more USPS support. I've been told a lot of people have ideas. Yeah, okay. Well, I think we have a very, very workable idea to get this started. And I do believe we can restore mail to the 2008 levels. Who else is making that promise? So thank you for joining me. Join the WDMA if you'd like to. You can be a subscriber and it's free. If you want to contribute, WDMA.org. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.